Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economics Series. Have you ever just stopped and wondered why, after so many decades of really brilliant work, Islamic economics kind of feels like it's still trying to find its place in the academic world? Well, today we're going to dive deep into that exact question. We're going to unpack a powerful roadmap for the future, all inspired by the foundational work of Professor Sayed Tahir.
So here's the game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at the core issue, this identity in question. Then we'll shift to the solutions. How do we properly define the discipline and, more importantly, how do we reconstruct it from the ground up? After that, we get really practical. We'll map out the new research frontier. And hey, for all you researchers and PhD students watching, you're going to want to stick around because I'm going to lay out 3 potential research topics you could absolutely run with. All right, let's jump right in.
All right, first up, the identity crisis. Just think about it. So many brilliant minds have poured their lives into this field. But if we're being really honest with ourselves, there's this nagging feeling that something isn't quite clicking. The whole discipline is kind of facing this identity crisis. It's struggling to find solid ground in the wider academic world. And this isn't just some abstract debate, This is about the future of a field that has so much to offer.
And this question right here gets to the absolute heart of it. Is Islamic economics its own distinct discipline with a totally unique way of seeing the world? Or is it maybe just a subfield, a flavor of conventional economics, maybe filed under heterodox? The fact that even the top experts in the field don't have a consensus on this tells you just how deep this uncertainty really goes.
Okay, so how do we fix this? Well, you have to go right back to basics. It's like building a house. You can't start with the roof, right? You need a rock-solid foundation. And that's exactly what this is about. The first most critical step is to hammer out a clear, robust definition that carves out its own unique space. Without that, everything else is just built on sand.
And this is the anchor we need. Just look at how this is put together. It starts with the universal problem, the stuff every single economist on the planet studies: allocation, production, distribution. That's the common ground. But then, boom, it drops the game changer. The analysis is done in the light of the Quran and the Sunnah. See, that makes it crystal clear. This isn't just economics being done by Muslims. It's economics built on a completely different operating system.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, check this out. On the left, you've got your standard conventional economics. It runs on reason and experience. But on the right, Islamic economics adds that massive third pillar, the Sharia, and that changes the entire game. Suddenly, the goal isn't just efficiency, it's efficiency and distributive justice. The basic unit isn't just a self-interested individual, but a socially responsible one. And the big one? Policies aren't just good or bad for the economy, they're right or wrong on Sharia grounds. It's a total paradigm shift.
Now here's another crucial distinction we have to make. Islamic economics is not the same thing as fiqh. Think of it like this. Fiqh gives you the rules of the game. It draws the lines on the field and tells you what's inbounds and what's out of bounds, the do's and don'ts. Islamic economics, on the other hand, is the science of how the game is actually played within those lines. It studies why people make the choices they do and what the results are. One is the rulebook, the other is the analysis of the game itself.
For a long time, the main approach was this idea of Islamization. You can think of it like taking a standard Western car engine and just trying to bolt on some Islamic-looking parts. It doesn't really change the engine. The proposal here is something way more radical. It's a complete reconstruction. It's saying, let's forget that old engine and build a brand new one from scratch, designed from day one on our own blueprints.
And this quote right here just nails it. The whole point is to stop trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Instead of trying to make existing models fit, the goal is to develop authentic models that flow naturally from the Sharia. The question we should be asking is, what kind of economy grows organically out of an Islamic worldview, not how do we tweak this existing model to make it look a bit more Islamic? It's a massive difference.
Now, this whole reconstruction idea isn't just a theory. There's an actual actionable plan here, a 3-point agenda for researchers. First, delineation. You got to define the ideal. What are we actually aiming for? Second, preservation. Okay, once you've envisioned this system, how do you make it resilient? How do you protect it from shocks? And third, diagnosis. How do we use this new lens to look at the world's real problems and come up with fresh solutions?
So, with this new methodology and a clear plan, where do we start? Well, like any great expedition, the first step is to map the unknown territory. We have to be honest about what we don't know and identify the huge gaps in our knowledge. And this is where the real opportunity is, especially for the next generation of scholars.
It's about charting a whole new research frontier.
And on the theory side, man, the questions are huge. We talk about an Islamic economic system, but what does that actually look like today in the 21st century? How do you create a clear rulebook, a transactions matrix, for how markets should behave? What's the government's role? And what does a business that isn't just about maximizing profit actually look like on a spreadsheet? These aren't small questions, they're foundational.
But theory is only half the picture, right? We have to get our hands dirty with data. We need to go beyond just ideas and gather hard evidence. What is the actual measurable real-world impact of Zakat and Waqf? How can we get good, solid data on risk-sharing finance? And here's a tough one. How do we scientifically separate authentic Islamic behavior from just, cultural habits? This is where the real detective work has to happen.
And that brings us to a direct call to action. Based on all these gaps we've just talked about, we can carve out some incredibly important research topics. So, for all you PhD students, postdocs, and young researchers out there, listen up. This is where you can genuinely make your mark and help reconstruct the field.
First up, modeling the state. What is the economic role of the government in a modern Islamic economy? And I'm not talking about a historical reenactment, I'm talking about building a new model for taxation, public spending, and regulation for the world we live in right now. Now that is a PhD-worthy challenge if I've ever heard one.
Second, let's get empirical. We talk so much about the power of Zakat and Waqf, but what is their actual quantifiable impact on poverty and wealth inequality? This research topic is about getting the data to prove it. Can you imagine being able to show, with hard numbers, just how these institutions can transform a society? That's not just a research paper. That's something that could change the global conversation.
And finally, number 3, this one is really cutting edge. How do you actually test Islamic economic behavior? Well, this is where experimental economics comes in. You could literally design controlled experiments in a lab or in the field to start figuring out what's truly Sharia-driven behavior versus what's just cultural habit. You'd be building the very foundation for a true behavioral Islamic economics. So, we're left with a pretty powerful thought. If we actually dare to do this, to rebuild this discipline from its very foundations, could Islamic economics offer new, desperately needed solutions for the world's biggest economic challenges? It's a huge question, but it's one that's absolutely worth pursuing. Thanks for joining me. See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.